Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another movie review. Today we're going to be talking about 2020's, but just recently released, Psycho Goreman. The film is directed by Steven Kostanski. It's also written by him. It stars Matthew Nineber, Christine McCullough, Rick Amsbury, Adam Brooks, Scout Flint, Nita Jose Hanna, Robert Homer, Timothy Paul MacArthur, and others. The plot synopsis is: after unearthing a gem that controls an evil monster looking to destroy the universe, a young girl and her brother use it to make him do their bidding. So this had been kind of on my radar for a little bit. Steven Kostanski has done a few things that I thought were okay, or at least one. He did this movie back in 2018 called The Void, which is kind of like a back to basics, like late 70s, 80s kind of horror, eldritch horror, kind of H.P. Lovecraft kind of vibe. But the thing about it was it has tons of practical effects. That was kind of what the showcase for the movie was, because the effects work and the kind of the mood and the tone, what they were able to do with such a low budget, is kind of what made it appealing, because the movie itself is okay. But what it did is it kind of put him on my radar. So I heard about Psycho Gorman like last year at some point. I saw some still frames. I think I might have seen a trailer or a teaser not that long ago. I can't really remember, but I saw it pop up on a VOD today. Now, this is kind of a Shudder co-production, I think, or at least they bought the rights to it. So I think at some point, probably in the near future, within a few months, it'll be on the streaming service Shudder. So if you have Shudder, you might as well wait. And now that's not me telling you what I think about the movie or if it's good or bad, but it is a niche product. It is something that kind of belongs on a service like Shudder. It's very in line with the other movies that Shudder has put out, I'd say. So the elevator pitch for this movie, I would say it's kind of like if Troma had made the movie Suburban Commando. It's been a long time since I've seen Suburban Commando, the movie with Hulk Hogan, where he's like this dude that is like a bounty hunter from outer space, and he crash lands on Earth, and he ends up like staying with his family, and all sorts of hijinks ensue, and then these other aliens land on Earth looking for this dude. It kind of reminded me of that, like the structure of it, the kind of humor, because it's a fish out of water story. You have this uber demon alien guy that's out to destroy worlds, and he's been kind of contained for a long time, and these kids accidentally awaken him. But they find this gem, like I said in the description, where they can kind of tell him what to do. And then the story kind of just proceeds from there. There's a lot of obvious things that you would think would happen where they're just kind of fucking with them, or it allows them to kind of, I don't know, take control of their lives and the situations in their lives, because they have the backing of Psycho Gorman, PG, as they call him lovingly in the film. And it's pretty entertaining. I was really surprised by how far they're able to take the concept, because you could imagine something like this being really lazy, and it would be like kind of the same joke over and over and over again. And it doesn't really fall into that trap too much. It does maybe a little bit, but the story is constantly evolving. I was actually surprised how plot heavy it was, but not in a bad way. I wouldn't say that it's like plot heavy in a way where it feels like overly complex for what it is. It's always kind of revealing a new layer to the larger world, which informs what's going on with Psycho Gorman. So it has that kind of thing where it's kind of giving you these breadcrumbs as it goes, and then as that starts affecting the actual story, as these people start looking for Psycho Gorman, it's able to kind of constantly reinvent itself to a certain degree. And it has kind of this basic kind of structure where, Psycho Gorman kind of develops feelings for the kids, and he kind of becomes slightly tame. But the movie is smart enough and fun enough to have kind of the subversive quality to it, where it's like he's really only tamed in a certain direction. He still has his mandate of universal destruction and causing people pain and all this kind of crazy stuff. But he's really kind of warmed to the idea that like, not everybody's bad. Maybe I don't need to destroy and kill everybody. That's kind of like the big lesson at the end of the movie. For the most part, I think everybody in the movie is good. I think there is kind of some, leanings towards kind of modern social commentary, which is very on the nose. It is kind of posited a little bit as lightly kind of as a girl power movie. Both of the male characters, the father and then the son/brother, They're kind of ineffectual, soy boys, whatever you want to call it. They're kind of displaced from society, and the movie just kind of calls them pussies, and that they're leeches a little bit, and that women have to take care of and do everything. And this is even reinforced on the meta layer of the film in terms of like what's going on with Psycho Gorman and the people that locked him up. Basically, there's kind of a parallel journey there that's going on, but it never. I don't. That stuff is a little muddy because I don't think it ever really does a good job of creating an arc where you feel like, well, people are kind of bettering themselves or people are learning something. It doesn't really happen, and I don't think necessarily with a movie like this, it's like a 90-minute comedy horror gore fest, that it really needs to, because it's I don't know. It didn't really bother me a ton. It is very on the nose, and sometimes there are some scenes that are like obnoxiously on the nose, because if you've ever watched these videos or watched my reviews before, you'll know that I have a kind of stick up my ass about subtext and how subtext isn't really done anymore. Subtext is more just on the surface now. And I think this movie definitely has that. It's just that because of the genre and because of the kind of story it is, it doesn't feel like it matters that much that it is that way because everything is surface level. I said Trauma, and if Trauma made Suburban Commando, but it also reminded me of like graphic novels, comic books. This is something that would have come out like in the early to mid 2000s by some sort of indie publisher. It has very much that kind of vibe to it, and you could see it probably translate actually pretty well to a comic book. I don't think this is based on any particular property. I believe this is an original IP, but it definitely have that kind of sense to it because there is a little bit of a depth to the lore, and credit to Kostanski, the director. He's able to kind of get that stuff across and tell you that story without ever bogging it down. It doesn't ever feel like the story has to stop to explain things to you. It all feels very organic and kind of just folds into everything very naturally. And it also kind of adds to the pace and the stakes of the story and what's happening by the end, how everything builds towards it. It's able to incorporate the origin of Psycho Gorman in a way which doesn't like have to stop the story to tell you the origin. Then when we return, it actually is able to pretty smoothly transition from one thing to the other. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. Kudos to Kostanski on that. But the big showcase of the movie is definitely the practical effects. Psycho Gorman is an awesome kind of costume, I guess. It's an awesome like man in a suit performance, and also just visually it looks great. This guy, like I said, going back to his other work in The Void, this is what he's really good at. He's really good at that kind of stuff. And having this be kind of a comedy horror movie, he's able to kind of get away with a lot of not necessarily, I would say, cheap looking, but cartoony looking stuff where it doesn't really bother you that it doesn't look like uber realistic or anything. And he's able to mine a lot of good comedy out of it as well. And also, because it kind of has, with Psycho Gorman especially, it has kind of like almost like this Hellraiser vibe to it, how he likes to kind of torture people for all of eternity. And it's a lot of fun. The guy who plays Psycho Gorman, what's his name? Matthew Ninneber. He's great. He's fantastic. He has great comedic timing. He really kind of he's able to anchor the movie. Because while I would say everybody in the movie is pretty decent and pretty kind of well modulated for the kind of movie they're making, they are a little, I don't know, they're a little over the top even for the material sometimes. Like the little girl, which I don't know her name. I think it's is this her? Yeah, Nita Jose Hanna. She is very, very like cartoony. Her performance reminded me a lot of Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. Like that's almost kind of the dynamic she has with Psycho Gorman, except that she can kind of control him in a way that Calvin obviously can't control Hobbes. But the kind of like the line readings, the kind of dialogue, it seemed almost like inspired by that. I don't know that for sure, but that was just kind of my takeaway, my reading of it. And I think she's good. Don't get me wrong. I think she's good. I think everybody's pretty good. But I do think that the standout is that guy, is Matthew Ninneber. He's really, really great. I'm not sure what else he's really done. He hasn't done much. He's kind of a newer on the scene dude, and he seems like he's played kind of bit parts up until this. This is his first kind of lead performance, his lead role. So very cool. Very cool. Like I said, I think if you are already like our Shudder subscriber, maybe just wait till it comes on Shudder. But if you are just a genre fan, you're looking for some kind of lighthearted, gory material, lighthearted, gory comedy, kind of a fish out of water type vibe to it, Suburban Commando by way of Trauma, I think this will do you okay. I think you'll probably enjoy it. I was pleasantly surprised. Like, I didn't have a ton of expectations for it. I would kind of just watch it more for the practical effects. I thought that would be interesting because I liked what he did with The Void. And I was pleasantly surprised by that the movie is very coherent and it's a decent, like, fun time. I felt like my 90 minutes well spent, in my opinion. So it's only $6 to rent. So if you're really bored and you're really into this kind of stuff, I'd say give it a go. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Maybe some of the social political stuff is a little heavy-handed. They are able to mine some comedy out of it that was sincerely funny and not as super cloying, but it was also a little frustrating. And it was frustrating not because it's in there, it's because like they don't do much with it. They don't do much with the fact that like the father is kind of like this ineffectual bum. There's some good jokes. There's definitely some good jokes in there, but I was hoping that because they do such a good job with kind of every other aspect of it, that felt a little less complete, I would say. But, not the worst thing I've ever seen. So yeah, definitely worth your time if you are into this kind of stuff. If you're a genre fan, this will definitely do you right. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my Twitter, for my brother Dan's Twitter. Also, if you'd like to make a recommendation for one of these videos or something for Zoobox Goes to the Movies, where I usually have a guest, we do deep dives, just let me know. Throw it in the comments. And if you did check out Psycho Gorman, or if you're looking forward to Psycho Gorman, I'm super curious to hear what kind of like horror genre fans think about it. I'd be very, very interested to hear some feedback on that. Because I was very pleasantly surprised. Like I said, I went into it not expecting much from it, and I had a good time. I had a really good time. All right, everybody, you have the best day